This is corruption at the highest level. Because if you cannot answer a simple question about Joe Biden's capabilities, then that further demonstrates that he was not in charge of his administration. Anthony Bernal was the right-hand man. That's her guy, her chief of staff. If he came in here and pled the fifth, I'm sorry. Former First Lady, she got to come in here and answer questions.
Yeah.
I got diagnosed with PTSD within 48 hours. I got put on trauma leave, not because I think of the shooting. You saw it in the eyes, the reaction of the people. They were coming for us. If he didn't jump up with his fist, they were going to come kill us.
I know.
Hunter Biden is not happy. He sat down for an interview where he was talking about his dad and saying, you know who's a liar? Jake Tapper. Yeah, I'm being serious. He is a liar. He didn't say liar exactly, but he said Jake is not telling the truth on this thing. And that's curious because Jake Tapper was in the tank for dementia daddy Joe Biden back when he was the president. Wrote a whole book about how he was duped on the whole thing. So it's curious to see now the Biden administration circling the wagons a bit. Why is Hunty Poo coming out doing PR hits and stings on dumb podcasts? So we'll go through that. Then we've got Ed Bernal. This is Dr. Jill Biden's so-called work husband who pleaded the fifth multiple times repeatedly when asked about what his involvement was with the Hunty pardon, with dad's duties and all the other things. We've got that. Then we've got Byron Donalds, James Comer, and Ron Johnson all coming up with reaction to the Biden crime family. But it starts with Hunter. Here is what he said about Jake Tapper dishonest.
Do you think Joe Biden was involved in some cover-up? Do you think Jake Tapper's telling the truth when he says that I was the acting chief of staff of the president? I was in that White House 12 days over the course of the last 2 years of the administration. Clearly, because I had other things going on. You ask one person to go on the record that would ever tell you that I was in any way making a single decision about anything in that White House. I stayed as far away as I possibly could, which, by the way, broke my heart.
Jake Tapper's a liar, or are you a liar? We don't really know. But I thought they were friends at one point. And now Hunter is defending himself, saying, I had nothing to do with it. And you're not going to find anybody who's going to go on the record and testify to say anything differently. Catch that line? So we also saw that the Oversight Committee was digging into Ed Bernal. This is the guy, Anthony Bernal, the guy who said takes the fifth at our deposition today and didn't want to answer any questions as it relates to who was actually making those decisions. Like, if it's not Hunter, who was it? Was it Ed? If it's not Hunter, was it his brother? Was it Jill? Who was running things? It wasn't Karine, was it? Oh my gosh. This was Anthony Bernal. He was saying this on the Oversight deposition interview with Congress.
Mr. Bernal, did you ever advise President Joe Biden to pardon his son, Hunter Biden?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer the question pursuant to my Fifth Amendment rights under the Constitution.
Mr. Bernal, was President Joe Biden fit to exercise the duties of the president?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer the question pursuant to my Fifth Amendment rights under the Constitution.
Let the record reflect that Mr. Bernal has invoked the Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination. Mr. Bernal, please be very clear. Are you declining to answer the question put to you solely on the ground that you believe the answer will incriminate you?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer the question pursuant to my Fifth Amendment rights under the Constitution.
Mr. Bernal, did any unelected official or family member of President Joe Biden execute the duties of the presidency?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer the question pursuant to my Fifth Amendment rights under the Constitution.
Let the record reflect that Mr. Bernal has invoked the Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination. Mr. Bernal, please be very clear. Are you declining to answer the question put to you solely on the ground that you believe the answer will incriminate you?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer the question pursuant to my Fifth Amendment rights under the Constitution.
Mr. Bernal, did President Joe Biden ever instruct you to lie regarding his health at any time, including but not limited in your testimony to Congress today?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer the question pursuant to my Fifth Amendment rights under the Constitution.
Let the record reflect that Mr. Bernal has invoked the Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination. Mr. Bernal, please be very clear. Are you declining to answer the question put to you solely on the ground that you believe the answer will incriminate you?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer the question pursuant to my Fifth Amendment rights under the Constitution.
Mr. Bernal, is it your intention to decline to answer all questions put to you today by the committee on the basis of the Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination?
I can represent that that is his intention.
Okay, why, oh why, is he pleading the fifth? People like Eric Swalwell said only guilty people plead the fifth. And if Joe Biden was totally in charge of his faculties, you just say, yeah, clearly he was. Obviously he was. Byron Donalds knows what is really going on. He came out and reacted to Anthony Bernal at the Congressional deposition, not answering any questions.
Your leadership on this issue, Constitution. First things first, that's just crazy. You can't answer a simple question about the former president's ability to discharge his duties, and you worked in the White House as chief of staff to the first lady, and you come in here and you plead the fifth. He can say whatever he wants in his testimony, which, by the way, his attorney read. He wouldn't even read his own statement. His attorney read his statement for him. So you came in there and said that him pleading the fifth is not an admission of guilt or anything about what was going on in the Biden White House, or was to give any inkling to the fact that Joe Biden was lacking in capability. The fact that he couldn't make any statement, the fact that the White House doctor couldn't make any statement, and they both pled the fifth, which is their constitutional right to do, and we respect the Constitution like every American does. But the fact that they are now hiding behind the Constitution so that they don't have to tell the truth to the American people about Joe Biden's capabilities and mental faculties while he was president of the United States is not just shocking, it's stunning, and it demonstrates the level of corruption that was going on in that administration. The chairman is being nice. I don't have to be. This is corruption at the highest level. Because if you cannot answer a simple question about Joe Biden's capabilities, then that further demonstrates that he was not in charge of his administration. And if he was not in charge of his administration, then every order, every bill that was signed, every memorandum, as far as I'm concerned, are null and void. And congressional Democrats need to actually step into the light and not hide behind this stuff or run away from it, because everything that administration did, as far as I'm concerned, is unlawful. If he did not have the ability to discharge his duties, then anything that he signed or the auto pen signed or whatever, as far as I'm concerned, is null and void. And where was Kamala Harris? I'm not going to speak for the chairman, I'm going to speak for myself. As far as I'm concerned, every member of the Biden administration at this point needs to be subpoenaed. I don't care if they were a secretary, I don't care if they were a janitor working in there. They all got to come in.
Does that include Dr. Joe Biden?
Of course. Her right-hand man, Anthony Bernal, is the right-hand man. That's her guy, her chief of staff. If he came in here and pled the fifth, I'm sorry. Former first lady, she got to come in here and answer questions.
Yeah.
Listen, that is the president's wife. I have a wife. James has a wife. Obviously, with family members, you want to do everything you can to protect your family. But if you can't answer a basic question to the mental capabilities of President Biden, then as far as I'm concerned, you now have to answer to the American people.
Should the former president and vice president be subpoenaed?
I think Kamala Harris needs to come in and tell us what she knew and when she knew it. She ran for president, so she should be able to tell us what was going on.
Yeah, and she could have been around to invoke the 25th Amendment. She could talk about and testify about whether there were conversations about the 25th Amendment, whether it was being debated or not. And so I think her testimony is very, very relevant. We're happy to see Byron agree. Now, here was James Comer, who also has a wife, who is also responding on with the Sean Hannity program.
Congressman Comer, do you plan on calling Jill and Joe Biden in as witnesses?
Well, I think the odds of calling in Jill Biden increased significantly today. We had her chief of staff and her self-proclaimed work husband there for what we planned to be an 8-hour deposition, and he kept invoking the Fifth Amendment, and his lawyer finally said, you can ask all the questions you want. We're going to invoke the Fifth Amendment on every question. So we need to know, was Jill Biden the one calling the shot while Joe Biden was incapacitated? Anthony Bernal had an opportunity to answer those questions today. He chose to invoke the Fifth Amendment. So I would say her odds significantly increased, Sean.
All right. Bring in the so-called doctor and see what she has to say. Ron Johnson, a senator, is also looking into Dementia Joe, and here's what he's up to.
A new investigation. Senator, it's actually yours. And it's zeroing in on President Biden's final days in office and whether he was even aware of major decisions being made with his name on them. What are you looking for?
Well, first of all, to set up a historical record. Now, I don't like duplicating of effort, and I know, in the House they're focusing on the auto pen. I think the Department of Justice is focusing on the auto pen. What I am doing is we are calling in cabinet officials, the individuals who would be responsible for implementing the 25th Amendment. They swore an oath to the Constitution. The 25th Amendment is part of that. So we are in a very methodical way requesting interviews, transcribed interviews. We've done one. A bunch of cabinet officials are on vacation for the summer. But again, we'll take our time to create the historical record of what actually happened in the White House, what cabinet officials who would be in charge of implementing the 25th Amendment, what they knew, when they knew it. The documents that the archives are turning over to the Department of Justice will ask for those same documents as well.
And we hope they get them. We'll see if Pam Bondi sends them over, but a lot has changed now, and the Republicans have control of a bunch of committees. The executive branch has the power to disclose the materials, and we hope we get it. Now, we also see the media was largely complicit in the Joe Biden cover-up. They covered for Hunter. They covered for Joe. He has a stutter. Be nice. And then when Trump started to surge and people started to criticize the media for their slobbering love affair of Democrats at the expense of honesty, accuracy, any truthfulness in their reporting, we see that they literally, this is so wild that this dude is even admitting this to everybody. He says, I got diagnosed with PTSD and trauma leave, not because he served in the military or something, okay? Here's why.
For those of us there, it was such a horror because you saw an emerging America. And it wasn't the shooting, Chuck. I got diagnosed with PTSD within 48 hours. I got put on trauma leave, not because I think of the shooting. You saw it in the eyes, the reaction of the people. They were coming for us. If he didn't jump up with his fist, they were going to come kill us.
I know.
For those of us there.
What? They were going to come kill us? This guy is so TDS deranged that he got PTSD and trauma leave because he was at the Butler shooting and he was afraid that the crowd was going to come for him. That's the reason. Not because he saw Corey get his head blown off, with all due respect, die in front of his family. Not because of that. That's not what caused the PTSD, okay? Not a big deal. Not the fact that the president, who is leading half the country, and if his death would cause probably a civil, war maybe, who knows what that would have done, but gosh. So if you ever have any doubts about it, just think about this guy and Chuck Todd. And Chuck Todd's even like, look at Chuck Todd. He's like, I know, we're all gonna die. It's crazy. It's like the same thing, like AOC said she was gonna get murdered on January 6th. They're like, were you even in the building? I don't think so. You were next door. What are you talking about? So they're just nuts. Like, it's a real disorder, and hopefully he gets some help, but he won't.